Thank you for tuning in to Retiring Well this week. We have so much information for you. We're excited to get the show started. To kick us off, John and I are talking about what is the silent retirement killer. There's something out there lurking that you just can play havoc on your retirement. Stay tuned and learn what that is. Then we're going to be talking about flying blind. This is an interesting one. Jack is going to be talking about that. And Jack, if you know, is a licensed pilot. So it's going to be interesting to see where he takes flying blind to at. Then diving into the numbers of the month price edition, getting into all the details about that is and how that may affect your retirement. Then simplifying retirement accounts. We've heard of all these different acronyms over the years out there and all these different things. Boy, wouldn't it be nice to simplify that all together? And to wrap up the show this week, Dylan is going to join us and ask the question that many of you have come in over the years when it talks with health insurance says, my neighbor has this plan, I want it too. That is dangerous, and he's going to talk about why is that and so much more here on Retiring Well.
Retiring Well, brought to you by Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial advisors specializing in retirement planning and serving all of Northern Michigan. Retiring Well, plan to retire well.
If you're anything like me, you like to plan and you want to be thinking through all the different facets of planning. And when it comes to your investments and your retirement planning, you've tried to figure out, okay, what are the best investments? And maybe you have an advisor that's helping you along the way. And you're so focused on these different investments and you're looking at S&P 500 and NASDAQ and different stocks. I'm thinking of this one client that's, he's done all of his research, Art, and he's figured out, here is the exact investment in it. And good news, it's made money. What they never factored into that, though, is what about paying taxes, especially when it comes to retirement and then you're drawing an income stream from your portfolio. Taxes are sort of that silent killer.
Absolutely. It is amazing, how surprised people get over the years as we work with people on certain things. And so unbeknownst to many people, you may be sitting on a tax bomb, if you will, from that. And there's three of them out there that we see trip people up. The first one simply being IRAs, 401ks, pre-tax sort of things. Remember, you got that tax break as you were putting money in. You got to defer all those taxes until you start taking that out, and now it's income. So the one that always seems to get people the most surprised is when they take a lump sum out. They want to buy a vehicle. They want to put a down payment on a house. They want to help their kids or something like that, and they go to take $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 out of these plans and then are alarmed that, okay, all of a sudden we have a $10,000, $15,000 plus tax bill just because of that distribution. So again, thinking about kind of that silent killer, as John talked about earlier, that can be one of them. The other one is kind of deferred gains, long-term gains, whether that's a piece of property you've held for a long time that's not your primary residence. Maybe it's a rental income property you've depreciated down and then you go to sell it. Or maybe it's just a stock that you've held forever that you picked and you were fortunate that it grew, but now it has these gains. And folks are kind of unaware of that or just kind of surprised again to learn of the magnitude that can cause, coupled with your other income taxes. And the final one that we'll talk about here is required minimum distributions. Remember, you have these pre-tax. If you have that 401 or IRA, there's a time and age you get when you have to start taking this money out. Well, based upon other incomes and how much money you have in that will determine the taxability of that. And it can get pretty hairy at certain times. So think of those three things, and there's many more out there, but those are the common ones.
Yeah, so to piggyback on that, keep in mind tax rates may not stay exactly where they are forevermore. You have to take into consideration national debt concerns. Obviously, everyone's been seeing that national debt's increasing. Well, how are they going to solve for that? One option could be the increase of future tax rates. And so you want to be looking at that, not just from, okay, here's what I'm looking at for this year's tax return, but what might that look like over time? Another area, if your income is creeping up to those higher levels, is then there's Medicare surcharge thresholds. IRMA is the acronym for that you'll want to be paying attention to, because all of a sudden then people get surprised and are paying additional money for their Medicare insurance, and that causes great concern. And then tax brackets when married filing jointly versus a single taxpayer. So those are all different pieces that you want to be taking into consideration for your tax planning.
Awesome. Well, no, so there's some maybe missed opportunities that are available out there that we commonly see people do. One, Roth conversions. We talk about it all the time on the show. If you've seen any episode of Retiring Well, we're likely at some point talking about conversions. They're vitally important, can definitely change that situation. Two is strategic withdrawals. When to take that money out. Think of, John talked about tax brackets and all that sort of stuff. Maybe trying to finagle them in different years, brackets, making sure they're keeping low. Tax diversification. Think of money in different buckets. You have the IRA, 401k, maybe you have Roth, and there's some after-tax non-qualified types accounts. Having different buckets of tax diversification to pull from can be really helpful in those years, and coordinating when to take Social Security. All those missed opportunities.
Yeah, so we have a team here at Centennial Wealth Advisory, a specific tax team that can help you analyze where you stand today, but also look at maybe 5 years, 10 years down the road where you might be if you're currently working and looking to retire, and sort of what tax brackets you might be looking at that time. So it's one we welcome you to give us a call. We'd love the opportunity to sit down with you, help you evaluate your retirement, and ultimately try and reduce your taxes over time as best as possible. Let us help you plan to retire well.
Introducing to you our new Retiring Well webinar series. This is going to be the last Wednesday of every month. We're going to be focusing on a number of different topics. It's going to be live. It's going to be held on Zoom. I encourage you to share this link with your friends, family, anybody that you might think is going to benefit from just practical advice on a range of different topics. Check out our website. We have links to all of the different topics we're going to be hosting. Again, encourage you to register, share the link with friends and family. We look forward to seeing you there.
I recently had a person come to me, meet in the Cadillac office, and they said, Jack, I feel like I'm flying blind. And man, did that trigger some memories for me. When I was 19 years old, I was at Hope College. I decided it might be kind of cool to get my pilot's license. I drove out to Holland Tulip City Airport, went to the FBO, walked in and said, I think I want to become a pilot. This retired Spanish teacher looked at me and said, oh, well, you can start today. And I said, okay, sounds cool. What do we do? And she goes, you walk out to that plane, you get in it with me, and we go flying. I'm like, awesome. So I don't have to fly blind. That's great. Well, then after that flight, she said, listen, if you seriously want to get your pilot's license, here's a CD-ROM kit. It's called Clear for Takeoff. You can go back to your dorm room and you can put this CD in there and it'll teach you what the first flight is going to be. And so, oh yeah, by the way, there's a cool book here that you can read as you learn. And then after 40 hours of flight time, I was able to get my check ride and get my private pilot's license, single engine land. And it started a love for flying that continued actually even into my instrument license that I never quite finished. I was all the way up to the check ride and life happened. But my point here is that I had an instructor every step of the way through all of the different flights that I went through. There were times I was flying solo or flying with some friends or flying with my wife, but there were times where we had to debrief from those flights and we had to get more training and more understanding. What happens when the weather changes and all of this stuff. So today, what I want to explain are 3 spots that I see a lot of people flying blind. They haven't received the correct education. They're missing opportunities. They're actually putting themselves into some pretty dangerous positions. Just like a new pilot that doesn't know what they don't know can get into some really bad situations. I've been there, okay? It's very scary. But when you debrief from it and then you figure out what got you there and how to avoid it the next time, you are better off. So the first one is people do not understand what their required rate of return is. Let's just say that this is all of their life savings, some Clunder cash here. I think that if you're sitting there, you should know what is required for this rate of return for this to last a lifetime. And there's a tool that we use, and we can tell you to the hundredths of a decimal based on different projections what your required rate of return is. When you know your required rate of return, you can help figure out what kind of risk you want. And you have that as a backdrop number. So figuring out your required rate of return, we can help you all across Northern Michigan offices here at Centennial Wealth. The second place people fly blind is distribution diversification. They don't really have that. Okay, so what typically happens is people will come in and they'll say, I have stocks, bonds, ETFs, I'm diversified. Yeah, all of these have roller coaster of risk to some extent. Some are less volatile, some are more volatile. But that's not, to me, real distribution diversification, because then all you do is hope that whatever market that your money is in is doing well when you want to take it out. So a big thing that we get to educate people on is what else is out there. Okay, so here's an example. It's the most simplistic as possible, but there's money behavior that you can sign up for. It's going to go up. You could maybe take out interest right away, or maybe you want to wait and typically take out like on an annual basis, like 10%. What's nice about these vehicles is that they can give you some really competitive rates, but you can also then take from them to fund what your distributions look like. Okay. Here's another opportunity, okay? And this is what would be called, it's linked to the stock market. So when the stock market's up, you get interest credited. But reason they like these is because when the stock market's negative over that year, that's where you get a zero return. You actually protect your principal. Again, you can take from these. You never have to sell at a loss to get these distributions. So distribution diversification has multiple different behaviors. And then finally, tax alpha. People need so much help in their tax planning, tax returns, tax projections. One common area we've been seeing quite a bit lately are in non-qualified accounts, where phantom income is really hurting their overall cost of taxes. And direct indexing has been an incredible solution for a lot of those clients. So thank you for watching this little episode on Flying Blind. You don't have to fly blind if you come to Centennial Wealth. Thanks for watching.
You made it. Years of hard work, investing, planning, and now you're here. The long-awaited reward you spent a lifetime looking forward to. But what now? After years of growing a nest egg, now you may want to manage it. Use it to fund your dreams. Make it last as long as you need it. And leave some for those you love. So what do? Wall Street continues to be uncertain, and some conservative options have dropped through the floor. How do you maintain opportunities for growth and reduce risk of loss from market changes? That's where we come in. We are financial professionals. From investments and insurance products to tax reduction strategies and guaranteed retirement income you cannot outlive, provided by the claims-paying ability of insurance companies. You've worked a lifetime to get here. Let us help you enjoy it to the fullest. For a complimentary consultation, simply contact us today.
When I was a kid, I used to spend some summer days at my grandma's house. Now, something I remember most was while she was making lunch, my sister, cousin, and I would watch The Price is Right. We loved watching that show and playing along with all the different games. One of the games on the show was called Then and Now. So Bob Barker displayed grocery items with a price, and the contestant would have to guess if the price was now or then, usually from as long as like 10 years ago. If they got it right, a certain amount right of items right, they'd win the prize. Well, today on this In the News segment, I'm going to take a little spin from that game for you all to play along with me. So I'm going to give you the price of something, and you're going to have to guess if that number is from 2025 or now. Now keep in mind that all the numbers that I'm sharing are national averages, and prices can vary based on geographic location and the brand that you purchase. All right, are we ready? All right, so the first item is the average cost of a gallon of gas. $3.13. Is this then or now? All right, the answer, then. Today's average cost is $4.42. Now these national averages are based on numbers from May of 2025 versus May of 2026. So why the increase? Well, the military conflict with the US and Iran earlier this year sent crude oil prices surging, causing citizens to see some of the highest gas prices seen in years. Now, prior to this conflict, energy analysts actually forecasted that gas prices might dip below $3 per gallon. All right, here comes our next item. The average price of a dozen eggs, $2.25. Is this then or now? Did you guess now? Well, you're right. This is the current average as of April 2026. Now, last year's peak average price, which was $6.23 a dozen, happened in March of 2025. The massive bird flu epidemic last year made prices soar to record highs. Fortunately, though, the chicken flock recovered and egg producers built inventories back up. All right, here comes our next one, a fan favorite, coffee. I'm specifically looking at a standard 12-ounce bag of ground coffee. $5.72. Is this price from then or now? Well, if you guessed then, you're right. The price I just showed is the average from early 2025. As of April 2026, the average cost of a 12-ounce bag of coffee is $7.29. Of course, this depends on the brand that you purchase. So what are some of the factors that may have caused the increase in price? One of the big drivers was tariffs, which resulted in higher costs for wholesalers. Severe weather last year in nations like Brazil and Vietnam restricted coffee supplies that also drove up the future prices. All right, here comes our next item, a loaf of white bread, $1.87. Is this price from then or now? That's actually now. This one's a bit tricky because the numbers are so close. The number I just showed is the average as of April of 2026. The average cost last year was $1.88. Now the good news here is that popular baking and pantry items have stayed relatively stable over the past year. Wheat prices have generally trended lower, creating relief for a lot of bakeries. All right, here comes the next one. A gallon of whole milk, $4.07. Is this price then or now? The answer is now. This average comes from within the first 4 months of 2026. Last year's average was around $4.42 a gallon. Again, more good news here as the average cost has gone down. So according to the Federal Reserve and USDA, the decline is a direct result of an oversupply of milk and increased production yields per cow, which countered overall inflation. All right, here's our last item, a pound of ground beef, $6.22. Is that price then or now? Well, if you guessed then, you're right. The average cost for a pound as of April 2026 was $6.89. So the biggest reason for the increase continues to be cattle shortages and a strong consumer demand. This has been going on for several years now, and the USDA projects that prices could continue to climb as the year progresses. So what's the takeaway from all these numbers? Well, prices can change and vary year over year for several reasons. So you need to be mindful of inflation and aware that certain national or global events could upend the cost of goods. It's important to have a financial strategy that takes into account rising costs. Part of that strategy involves income planning and having an emergency fund to plan for unexpected expenses. So how did you do in the then and now game? Well, no matter how you did, our team here at Centennial Wealth is here to help navigate your retirement planning. We're based right here in Northern Michigan and ready to talk through goals for your money. Give us a call for a free no-obligation consultation so that we can help you plan to retire well.
Living life isn't always easy. It puts up challenges and obstacles you'll have to overcome. There are responsibilities. You put in effort to provide and take care of your family, and to save and invest, to balance work and life. Planning is the first step to succeeding. Plan to retire well.
I'd like to talk with you about one of the most overlooked financial life hacks in retirement, and that is simplification. Okay? Most people, when they think of retirement and financial planning, they think that it has to be complex. They need more accounts, more investments, more products, more strategies, and so forth. And oftentimes what I have found is that the people that enjoy the retirement the most have some of the most simplest retirement plans that are out there. Okay? But it doesn't come by chance. Most of the time it takes a lot of work to get to the point where you fully understand your plan and it's simple enough that you can give you a peace of mind that you know what's going on. Okay? Reason being is a lot happens over your investment lifetime. You have multiple different jobs and 401ks. You know, I have lots of clients where they come in and they've got, you know, an old 401k from 20 years ago. They've got the current 401k. Maybe they even had a 403b in there because they worked at some company for a couple of years. They also have, you know, an IRA because their accountant said, hey, you need to open up this IRA to get the tax benefits this year. And then their neighbor down the street said, hey, open a Roth IRA. And so they opened a Roth as well. And so oftentimes when I meet with people, they come in and they have these piles of statements, they have accounts all over the place, and they really don't understand what they have. In fact, you know, just last month I met with a couple who, ironically, they had a 529 plan that they totally forgot about. In fact, their son that they had to put this 529 plan together for didn't end up going to college. He went into trades, and they had been contributing to this 529 plan every year even since then, and it's been multiple years since this child was out of, you know, college and basically on his own. And they were surprised by the balance that they had in that 529 plan, but it's something, a prime example of the fact that they had no idea that it was still out there. They had completely forgot about that. And I see that so often. So, you know, one of the ways that you can simplify your retirement is by consolidating all these different accounts that you have, okay? A great thing to do is look back at these various accounts and determine, hey, can I roll that old 401k that I have into my new 401k? Or maybe it's taking that old 401k and rolling it into your IRA. There's a lot of benefits to consolidating these accounts. One is just understanding where everything is at and not having all these different logins to these different companies to track these investments. Another thing is understanding exactly how you're invested. Right? It's got to be, you know, very difficult to determine, okay, in this 401k, I'm invested this way, and this IRA, I have this going on, and this Roth account, I've got these investments, and so forth. So it's often best if you consolidate and get it all into one account or a couple different accounts to better manage it, right? Also, you got to look at fees, okay? What are all these different accounts costing you in fees? It's so much easier if you just have one 401k and one Roth or one IRA, and you understand, hey, this is how much I'm paying in fees to have this managed this way. Oftentimes also people think, well, it's great to have this diversification with all these different accounts because then I'm diversified, right? Well, oftentimes when you have, you know, an old 401k versus a new one, yeah, they might say, hey, these are different strategies and so forth, but they often hold the exact same mutual funds or the exact same positions. So you find yourself that you're actually over allocated in certain areas, and maybe you weren't expecting that. Also, another consideration with not having everything simplified like that is the amount of risk, and this is where it can really hurt people. You may have set up a 401k, years upon years ago, and your risk tolerance at that point in time might have been a lot higher than it is today. I mean, heaven forbid another market crash comes along and you had a bunch of money in that old 401k and you were taking on a lot more risk than you anticipated. You could be in for a shocker, especially if you're approaching or in retirement. So I encourage you, don't overlook the simplification factor of your retirement. Consolidate those accounts if you can, and look for a solid financial plan throughout retirement. Doesn't have to be complex, it can be simple, but that often creates a lot of peace of mind so that you know you can retire well.
Introducing to you our new Retiring Well webinar series. This is going to be the last Wednesday of every month. We're going to be focusing on a number of different topics. It's going to be live. It's going to be held on Zoom. I encourage you to share this link with your friends, family, anybody that you might think is going to benefit from just practical advice on a range of different topics. Check out our website. We have links to all of the different topics we're going to be hosting. Again, encourage you to register, share the link with friends and family. We look forward to seeing you there.
Your grandchildren are precious to you. They are your life. This is your time to have that special relationship. Taking care of yourself is taking care of them. Centennial Wealth Advisory is offering a free, no-obligation retirement review to make sure you don't run out of money during your retirement. Centennial Wealth Advisory. Your best is yet to come.
One thing we hear a lot is, my neighbor has this plan and they love it. Or my friend told me this is the plan that I should get. And that may be great for your neighbor or your friend, but that does not automatically mean it is the best plan for you. With Medicare, there are a lot of different things to consider. Your doctors matter, your prescriptions matter, your budget matters, even how often you travel or where you spend part of the year can matter. Two people can live on the same street and still have very different health insurance needs. For example, one person may be focused to keep their monthly premium as low as possible. Another person may care more about not having to worry about in and out of networks. Someone else may take a prescription drug that makes one plan a better fit than another. That is why there is not one Medicare option that is automatically right for everyone. The right fit depends on your situation and how the plan fits your doctors, your prescriptions, your budget, and what you are most comfortable with. So before choosing a plan based on what worked for someone else, it is important to compare your options and make sure that plan fits your needs. A plan can sound great in a conversation, but once you look closer, it may not include your doctor, it may treat your prescriptions differently, or it may not match the way you like to receive care. Our goal here is to help you understand your options and make a decision that fits your needs. So before choosing a plan because your neighbor has it, take the time to review what works best for you. Your neighbor's plan might be a good plan, it just might not be the best plan for your situation.